All right. Welcome to the Subconscious Elements podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Tori Setliff, and we're here for another day of breaking down the gene keys. Today, we are on the 7th gene key, and I'll let you break it down, Tori.
All right. So the 7th gene key is virtue is its own reward. So at the shadow frequency, we have division, and the leap towards the gift frequency, you can see guidance. And then at its final citic state, you have virtue. And so it's just the process of going through the shadow of division, then opening yourself up towards guidance and helping others, and then becoming virtuous, which is not very common in our current society.
Right. Yeah. So it's talking about like hierarchies and how they keep us into this idea of division, like they keep us separated. And you see this a lot in world politics. You see a lot of, like, actually any time that communism was put into place, or like a system based on classes, essentially, like you would think that, they put the classes, or actually they applied the classes to society, saying that it would like help people transcend the classes. But almost every time what happens is that it keeps you where you're at. And they'll even come up with rules so that you can't transcend the class that you're at. So the poor stay poor and the rich stay rich. I believe in China at one time, they even made it to where if you were of a higher society, a higher social class, and then you married or got with someone of a lower class society, it would pull you down instead of pulling them up. So it would like deter people of higher classes even mingling with the lower classes, because that would be one way that you could transcend that, is by
Marrying up.
But it's been applied, not only was it China, but also North Vietnam too. So they would like try to punish you if you try to transcend the classes and make it worse on you. And in Vietnam, they would use, not Vietnam, in North Korea, if they found like you or anyone connected to you like disobeyed, they would like wipe you out, your whole family out, anyone connected to you. So they would essentially like not only apply these classes, but if you messed up in any way or tried to break any of the rules, they would just eliminate you and everyone that knew you.
Because they wanted the most compliant bloodlines.
Right. Yeah.
To survive.
100%. And then that would essentially create this fear-based society where like you would just snitch on people, because if they found out that someone that you knew did something, they would kill everyone that would possibly know about it. If you're in the same class as this person, if you were this person's neighbor. So essentially they tried to like make it to where the lower classes would just like snitch on themselves and stuff like that, which is pretty trippy. But just again to that idea of, people think that if we define the classes and put people in these different classes of society, that somehow it'll like make it easier for us to like bring people up, or for people to transcend where they're at. And almost every time it proves that that is not the case.
Yeah, it was saying that we see this a lot in business in our current society, and that there's a lot of hierarchies in business, and basically that the gene keys breaks it down in 3 pieces, like the lowest form, then the gift, then the citic level. But in business, it's broken down in 7 different stages, referring to the chakra system. So at the very lowest level, you have like authoritarianism, and then towards the middle area, you have facilitator, and then towards the highest level, you have virtuous. And so we see this a lot in business, where they kind of break it down as the workers, and then it's very hard to reach higher levels. And within that, you have your own power struggles. And at the highest level, we're seeing greed and money as ruling the entire hierarchy, instead of benefiting the whole and like self-serving and service for others. So it's more based around greed and control and keeping people locked in the state of fear in their place.
Right. Which you experience a lot at like working at like a restaurant where people at the very top are making all the money and everyone below them is extremely miserable. And essentially it's like, if you work at a restaurant, almost never do you meet someone who's like in it for the entire organization. Like you don't meet like servers who want to do their best so that the restaurant makes more money so that everyone makes more money. It's generally everyone's out for themselves. And it's like that because of the hierarchical system and the way that the people who are in charge are implementing it, right? It's like we saw it at the Union Kitchen where why would I come in here and give extra effort to making sure that this place runs smoothly if at the end of the day, they're not even going to appreciate the hard work that I do, right? Like a huge joke that was so funny during one of the Christmases that we were there. They didn't even like let anyone have a Christmas party. So it's like there are businesses where the employees work not as hard and they're getting Christmas parties and their organization takes the time out to reward them or whatever. And then here's this business where everyone is working crazy hours. Everyone's doing backbreaking work. Like it sucks. And, you're not making a lot of money, but there's a bunch expected of you. And then Christmas comes around and you're not even allowed to use the facility to like have a party. They're like, no, you gotta get out of here and clean up and we got other stuff to do, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, how can we not even take time to let us enjoy like the holidays?
Yeah, because we're spending our holidays working. So you would think the least thing that we could do is kind of have some sort of break. But no, that was not the case.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, then you hear like, I've been part of multiple companies where, one of the times, we all went out to eat, where it's like they paid for everything. You got a free drink. And then we stayed out all night hanging out. Well, yeah, it's like all paid for Christmas parties. And it's like, there are even people who like purposely try to find like Christmas parties that they can go to where like everything's paid for. And it's like, it's just so funny that there's like businesses out there that do that. That I would even argue were less successful than the one that we're working at. I mean, the Union Kitchen and like the dude that runs it is, a millionaire, but he doesn't care about any of the people below him. It's essentially just like a revolving door of workers. No one stays there for long at all. And then you wonder why that is. And then you get there and it just makes sense. Like everyone is literally just trying to survive and out for themselves.
Yeah, it becomes such a big monopoly that the people running it are no longer in it for the love of the business. And you see it more likely in smaller businesses where it's like mom and pop shops. They open them up and they're there all the time. They're putting love, they're putting effort into everything that they do, all the people that they're touching and interacting with. And then once you get your business so big and you have so many concepts and so many ideas, it just loses that camaraderie and love and that was once established with the smaller business. Just keeps getting stretched further and further, and you have more people with other ideas that are leading this now, and it's a bent state that it was supposed to be. So it's it's not what they originally wanted it to be. So it's like on a different trajectory, if that makes sense. But
yeah.
It was saying that, so becoming a leader is genetically predispositioned within our genes. So, but the level in which the leader leads is completely dependent on the frequency that that person is experiencing. So just because someone is supposed to be a leader and they become a leader, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good leader or successful leader. And so we see that a lot playing out currently in our reality with the presidents and the options and the politics that we have. We just see that it's like, these are the men that we're offered. And it's like, I know that there has to be better options out there. There's so many Americans and we're choosing from this very small pool just doesn't seem very correct in my mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to be a leader from that survival state, right? Like in order to really be a good leader, you got to be in a thriving state. So we would see that in the managers almost always, like they're just worried about themselves, worried about their own food, worried about their own time. And so every day, you come in and they just got more rules to put on you, more things to worry about. And it's like, they don't even care who you are as a person. They're just like, make sure you're trying to sell the VIP cards. Make sure you're doing this. Try to push the desserts. Make sure we're doing this. Oh, we need to be doing this. Oh, no one's supposed to be sitting down on shift. Yeah, one of the number one things that always cracked me up is, again, like just a very basic example of leadership would be leading by example. And that is like the number one thing that you don't see. And again, that's from the selfish behavior. And I think it says it it does say it in the book, but it talks about how leadership is supposed to be of service, right? So, and I've mentioned that to you before, but you're not supposed to be a bar manager because you're the best bartender. You're not supposed to be, a sales manager because you're the best salesperson. That's not what the manager is supposed to do. The manager is supposed to be in service to the team. Well, you're what they call a troop handler. You're supposed to handle the troops. What I mean by that is like take care of them, make sure they got everything they need so that they can do the best job that they can do. Not like a lot of times what you see is people are like, oh, well, when I was on the floor, I'd make all these sales, or yeah, if I was doing it, it'd be more like this, blah, blah, blah. And like their essential only way of motivating you is by trying to tell you about how they used to do it and how they're so much more successful at it. Instead of actually like showing you like ways to be better, they're just like, oh, well, if I was doing it, I'd have been doing it like this, or I'd have sold 10 cars if I was back on the floor. Or, the managers, instead of being servers, is like, oh, well, when I was a server, I was taking home this much money. So it's on you guys. It's like they're just trying to put you down instead of showing you the skills that can get you there.
Yeah, that is definitely a good point. It was saying towards the gift level, we see guidance, and through guidance, a true leader doesn't lead from the front. He leads by affecting the collective team, and often, most times, he'll let other people take the limelight and shine through their own individual expressions and their own cultivated skills that he has helped cultivate, and allow them to express by feeling comfortable and happy to be there. He'll let them express that and just be helping run from the sidelines or behind the scenes. It's not necessarily about the leader, which often gets confused as well. People get this status and they believe that they're that, and it boosts their ego, and then they become this inflation of who they think they are, and it distorts their entire persona as a whole, rather than remembering that it's not about any one person, it's about the collective, and it's about how the collective thrives, and the collective thrives through people putting in and feeling like they can express their individual skills and not forming to one way. But it was saying that that's what you learn through guidance, is that true guidance requires the highest level of listening, and through ultimate listening to others, you can help. Oftentimes you don't even need to input any information. Just listening to them will help them figure out their own problems by just allowing them to express themselves and help them understand themselves better, and they'll work themselves through their own problems most of the time.
Yeah. A lot of times questions are pretty self-explanatory. I see it a lot in jiu-jitsu when someone asks a question, when they ask it out loud, it becomes more obvious when they get that opportunity. But yeah, so we're talking about, leaders becoming of service. And, what did you say earlier?
About guiding from behind the scenes, allowing other people to express themselves.
Right. Yeah, and you see it. I saw it a lot in the Marine Corps. It was always like a joke that like the person above you would always take like credit for the work that you did and get the award. It's like a classic example. But every now and then you'd meet a good leader who would like make sure that those below him got awarded, you know? And I was actually talking about this with someone else the other day too, talking about that it's important to know how people want to be celebrated, that everyone wants to be celebrated differently. And it's important to know how someone wants to be celebrated so that you can, show them appreciation in the way that they want to. Because if we all have different perspectives of how we want to be treated, and then we can confuse that with like, oh, this is how I like to be celebrated, so this is how I'll celebrate others. But that might not be the best way that they
Receive it.
Yes, receive it. So as a leader who is, you know, in charge of multiple employees, you want to like first figure out how exactly do you like to be celebrated. You know, do you like it to be public? Do you want it to be long or short? You know, and when you can identify that, you can then figure out other people's celebration ways they like to be celebrated, and then use that in your leadership repertoire or book as like, oh, this person did a good job. I need to make sure that, you know, they know that I appreciate the work that they're doing, and oh, they like to, you know, they like it privately. They don't like to be embarrassed in front of people. So I'll make sure I stop by their office later today and say, hey, great work on this. Or, oh, this person really likes to be celebrated in public, you know, so at the next meeting, I need to say out loud, like, hey, thanks Becky for doing all the work on this project. We've come a long way. So, etc. Anyway, so in that idea, it's like, again, it's not about what you're doing. It's about what is your team doing, and then even understanding them on a level that you can celebrate their achievements in a way that they appreciate it.
Yeah, tailoring it to the individual rather than one celebration way for everyone, because that can often backfire. Like you said, some people don't like public display and can be embarrassed by.
Right. Yeah. And then, one of the things that really stuck out to me was talking about how we're talking about guidance, right? And this movement away from, you know, being a leader that's like, do it because I say so. You want to get to a point where you're not telling people exactly what to do. You're just giving them guidance, right? You're giving them like, here's the information that we have, and here are like the pros and cons of your decisions, right? You don't want to just tell people what to do every single time, because you want people to be able to make decisions on their own. And that's something that we see so often in, and again, like the restaurant business or these like lower level businesses where, you know, it's like that basic hierarchy, but almost always there's someone that's like, oh, you need to ask me before you do that. And it's like, that's that classic example of micromanaging, right? Where generally the low frequency leaders want to be in as much control as possible. And they essentially want you to rely on them. And almost always they are not reliable. It's like the people that want you to rely on them are the least reliable, because the most reliable people understand that it's like, dude, I need you to take care of what you're doing so that I can take care of what I'm doing. Not, I need to make sure that you're doing all these little things on your end. And it's like, almost always they're never doing all the little things on their end. But it'll be like one class. I remember this one specific time we were working at the restaurant. I like went to grab some French fries, and the dude's like, are you going to ask me for those? And I was just like, you want me to ask you for some French fries? And he's like, what if we needed those? And it's like, restaurant's empty, no tickets. And it's like, well, we don't, dude. And he's like, yeah, but we could have. And I'm like, you want me to ask you every single time we need some French fries? It's like, why would you want me to do that? Right. And then of course, the second we're busy, this dude's sweating and like can barely keep up with anything. Right. But he wants me to ask him about some dang French fries. And then you have that again with you for that specific case. one time you got in trouble because you didn't bring them a receipt for a wine. So they wanted you to bring them, if someone ordered a bottle of wine, you're supposed to bring the managers a ticket of the wine so that they can get it for you. But everyone knows that the managers are way too busy for that shit. And you're just supposed to, most of the time, if it's not that busy, you go show them the ticket and then they're like, yeah, go grab it. But if it's like super busy, man, just grab the effing wine. You got so much stuff to do. Just go do it. And everyone knows that. But then one day they just wanted to spite you and decided to make it a big deal that you didn't go get someone's attention to get the wine bottle. And it's like, here's this rule that's completely made up. It's not even real. It's like the second they're stressed out, the second, we have a bunch of people coming in and everyone's stressed out, it's like all the rules go out the door. And it's because they can't even handle what it is they got going on. And it's always, and it always cracks me up so much because of course they're always making more and more rules. It's like, I remember it'd be like, in order to finish the lunch shift, you had to pay the bar out and get a bar signature. And then you got to go find the managers and get them to sign you out. And then they're like, oh, well, no, before y'all leave, y'all need to also get the head server's signature. So trying to tell me I need 3 signatures before I can leave. And I'm just like, and of course, what happens every time you're trying to leave is like, oh, everyone's way too busy to take 2 seconds out of their time to sign your piece of paper or whatever. They're like, oh, no, wait. And then you're just sitting around for 30 minutes trying to get these individual people's attention. And it's just like, it's all just nonsense, like just made up nonsense. It's essentially people with power wanting more and more control over each person, right? It's like, oh, the head server is complaining because, we're not helping them enough for, like, oh, God forbid, not only do they get all the tables, but God forbid we don't help them serve all their tables while we're off the clock. So now for some reason we have to go get their signature, and it's like, I see these rules get put into play and it's like anyone with a common brain that like stands up for themselves will just be like, I'm not doing that. Like, no, if you want all these tables, then keep us on so that I can also make money. But if you cut me and you tell me I can go home, I'm not sitting around for you to finish serving 5 tables and take a second to sign my piece of paper, but in the whole hierarchical system, no one cares about the basic service. And most people wouldn't say anything, right? It's like the people that fall into those types of things don't say anything. They're just like followers and they'll just follow that type of leadership.
Yes.
Yeah. Super hilarious.
Yeah, there are a lot of structures in the places that I've worked that I've seen, and I'm like, I just refuse to do. And it's not because I want to go against what they've set into place, but it's for the fact that it doesn't currently fit the system that's working. So it's like, why would I put extra barriers between me and efficiency when I can make these things work more efficiently? And I'm not doing anything negative towards any person or product or service. It's just me fixing and like almost like restructuring and just helping the system. If anything, I feel like it's for the betterment of everything. And it's like, and sometimes whenever you do these things, they can see it as like you are going against them. And it's like, no, I have the best interest in my mind, my heart, and I'm doing what I think is best. And it's just my perspective, obviously, but I'm the one that's currently here the most out of all of the front of the house employees. So I see and deal with these things a lot more often than other people do. So I think that my opinion is very valid. So, but I run into these issues a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's like the first, again, that's like one of the first things that this book is talking about, where it's like, these people aren't even open to your opinion, even though you're the one there. And they fantasize about what it's like because they used to be there, but it's still not the same. Right. And it's like, I remember this one classic example. Yeah. The owner came in and like, the whole restaurant's practically on fire. And, he tries to be a good owner and like, oh, I'm going to help y'all, and starts like helping bussing tables. And within he did maybe a third of a shift, just a couple hours we were busy. And he started changing rules because he realized like all the bullshit ass rules we're dealing with don't make sense. He's like, why are we putting 2 linen cloths on this. And it's like, because that's the rules, dude. We're literally not allowed to set this table unless there's 2 linen cloths. He's like, well, that just doesn't make sense. And you're like, you think? You know, like, we've been saying this, fool. Like, fucking, we don't have enough damn linens to put on these tables. And what happens the second we run out of linens? We just use 1 linen table. But God forbid, you know, at any other time of the day, it's like, why don't these have 2 linen? And it's like, that's just the rule. We don't even know why he made that rule. Who made that rule? Why is it like that? Does anyone know?
Can it be updated?
As soon as, not.
Please, someone update the system.
Yeah, for real. They act like these rules are like instilled in the Bible or something.
Yeah, for real.
No, as soon as he got there, he's like, this is just ridiculous. We're going down to 1 linen cloth. And it's just like,
yeah, that's only one micro detail to all the millions of other micro details that annoy me daily.
Yeah, bro, you take 1 hour as a busser and you feel like the way we're doing it is wrong. It's like, buddy, why don't you try doing this for a couple weeks and then see how many different things need to be changed, you know? But that's a classic example. And there was another same funny incident with that same business where it's like the COO, the chief of operations, comes down and he's like, oh, this needs to be like this and this is supposed to be like this. This is why we designed the place. And I specifically remember the general manager trying to tell him, is like, well, we did it this way because if we move this table over here, people are more likely to walk through here and it's going to be a hazard. And he's like, well, this is why we built this place, is because the table is supposed to align with the lights. And now it's off center. And that's why we designed it this way. So we need to move the tables back to be alignment with these lights. And of course, the manager, being a loser that he is, like, well, okay. Not even a day later, someone slips and falls.
And I literally caught her. She didn't fall completely because I was just happening to walk by and I caught her. She was wearing high heels and the manager saw me catch the lady and then another lady fell and I wasn't there to catch her that time. But yeah, it was 2 ladies. I think it was in the same day because they moved that table.
Yeah. And it's like, here's this GM who literally lives in this building. Not a good leader. But he is manning the position that they're paying him for, right? It's like the general manager is supposed to know everything about that place. That's what you pay him for. It's like to be there all the time so that he knows the ins and outs of this restaurant. Then here comes this guy who like never in the restaurant, never seen him before, but he's the director of operations, right? We all need to know his name, whatever. And he comes in changing stuff based on like old stuff. He's like, well, this is why we built it. And it's like, well, yeah, dude, but this is how we're running it. Like, it doesn't matter what you built it for if
it doesn't work.
If it doesn't work, or we had to move this table back so it discourages people from walking through here. They'll walk on the carpet, which I think anyone with a brain could say that it's much safer for guests to walk on the carpet to the bathroom instead of walking on tile next to the kitchen.
I think it's really slippery and oily.
It's got food and shit all over it because we're making plates and moving. It's like the most highest traffic area is coming from the kitchen, the expo line to the rest of the building. And it's like, oh, here's this guy. We're paying probably like $100K to run this place. And it's like, yeah, he's like, oh, well, we moved it because of this reason. Well, that doesn't match with why we built this place. But you see, that is like that example. You see it in everything. It's like when you're in the Marine Corps, somebody from somewhere comes from here's this guy who's an officer and he's supposed to be in charge of all this and he's supposed to tell us how to do it. And then he's like, well, why aren't you doing it this way? It's like, well, because when you get there and you're actually there, the way that you're trying to tell me to do it doesn't actually work like that. It's like when you, just because some book somewhere, oh man, I was in the Dune too, right? It's like, because the officers in the military, they're like they're the ones who go study books and shit, right? They read a bunch of stuff and I take a bunch of tests, so they're known as the smart ones. But the enlisted, we're the ones that actually go out and do things. So it's 2 different types of experience, right? Where like the officers, they're learning about like how to do briefs and make things professional, and they're supposed to be the big brained mofos, make sure they understand all the history and all the reasons of like mission planning and all this. And then you got the enlisted that actually go out and operate the mission. So there's just like 2 different levels of intelligence. But obviously the best teams are the ones who combine the information together. But you always get some idiot who thinks they're the shit and they want to try to tell you what the book says. And it's just like, you're just like listening to them and you're like, but dude, you have no idea what you're saying. You're repeating some shit that you read off on a book. And they had that in the movie Dune Part 2, where he's listening to, I don't remember her name, but the love interest in the movie show him how to do the sand walking. And he's like, well, actually.
In the films that I watched, they did this, and she's just staring at him like, are you done? He's like, oh. And then he realizes it. He's like, let me just stop talking.
Yeah. It's like,
this girl has lived here her entire life.
Yeah.
And she's learned from all the masters and ancestors above her. So
100%. Yeah, no, earlier we were talking about, service and guidance and how a good leader wants to get rid of you. That really struck with me because in the Marine Corps, it would always bother me when people would become a new rank and then they still don't like make decisions. It was like when I became the first, what you would call a leadership position. Technically in the Marine Corps, there's always a leader no matter what. So, like the joke is like if there's two Marines somewhere, someone's in charge. Two people of the same rank, and that's it. Someone's in charge. So essentially you're like taught that no matter what, one of you is in charge, and that's where the responsibility lies. And so you have like a way to determine who's in charge no matter what at any time. Well, yeah, some people will pick up rank and then they would still like go to the next person above them to ask questions. And it's just like I remember this one day, I watched this one person kind of get in trouble. They're like, yeah, organize this, these two bookshelves of like, it's like binders of like operations and shit like that. Like a bunch of different books with information about a bunch of different, standard operating procedures. And he's like, yeah, organize it. Like, that's what your job is to do for the day. And then this person asked the boss multiple times, like, so do you think that, I should organize it like this or like this? And I remember like watching this, like, whatever you think's best. It's like, okay. It's like, well, so what I was thinking was I'm gonna do this, and then what do you like? This is like the number one thing people do. Like, what do you think about this, Staff Sergeant? This shit would just make me so mad. Like, it's like, dude, just do it. Just figure it out. And then if he has a correction,
hold your hand, bro.
Yeah. It's just like my thing was like when I got corporal, I was like, I would just make decisions. It's like, yeah, I would rather someone say, it's like one thing that we would say to people that, let's say you made a bad decision, or you just made a decision that you weren't supposed to make. They would say, good initiative, bad judgment, right? It's like a joke. It's like,
at least you tried.
At least you tried. Yes, but that should be the goal, is at least try to do the right thing. And if you don't, it's not the biggest, obviously.
It's a learning opportunity regardless.
Yes. Take the learning opportunity of making the decision. I was always the guy who's like, if I could have made a decision, I was making it. I was just like, dude, let's just go. And like, well, what chefs aren't going to say? He's like, who cares? Like, he's either going to tell us we shouldn't have done it, and next time don't, or it was like, oh yeah, thank you.
We have to make a decision.
Yes.
Don't bother someone else. Yeah. Like, they're busy too. They have other things going on. That's what I realized working in the service industry. It's like, no matter how much stress you're going through, other people are also going through a lot of stress. So if you can manage your own stress by yourself, that only helps the rest of the team. Like, the worst thing you can do is bring your stress onto someone else, because they're already stressed out. And most people can't barely manage their own stress. So if you give them anything else, they'll just implode. So yeah, I say that all the time. People ask me questions. They're like, hey, what should we do? I'm like, we make our own rules and we're going to figure it out. Like, just figure out something. Like, and it's kind of like a joke. It's like, that I talk about making up our own rules all the time, but it's like no one really knows the answer in the moment, so we just have to pick an answer and then we'll figure it out from there. It's like anyone else that you ask would have the same response. It's like no one really knows the answer. There is no answer. It's just like, do something. Whatever happens, and everyone's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I would when I worked at the airport for a while, people would ask me questions about like the flights and stuff, and they'd be like, hey, do you use this flight later? Do you know where it's going? And I'd be like, oh no, it is delayed, it'll be here any moment. Like, I would just say some answer, because it's like obviously they want an answer. Like, no, it's not gonna help them any if I'm like, I don't know. And then also, but if I know I go ask my manager, they're gonna say, I don't know. They're going to be like, tell them something. Tell them it's going to be here and like they're whatever. They'll give me something to say. So I just shortcut the process. And like, instead of me going to go ask the manager and him coming up with something for me to tell this person, I'll just come up with something and tell this person. I remember one time telling the managers that was my go-to move. It's like, oh, anytime someone asks you a question you don't know about, say with the most confidence a random answer and it'll be fine. And I just remember the managers like stop what they're doing. They look at me and they're just like, and then they go back to it. But it's so true. It's like, man, someone's like, the information they ask is impossible for anyone to know. They're like, where is this planet? Is it supposed to be here? And it's like, well, what's on that screen is what I know, dude. You know? So I would just look
You
at
know
it.
the same thing I know.
Yeah, I would just
you
say
want me to call the flight?
Yeah,
the pilot?
For real. So I'd just be like, he's like, is this aircraft delayed 15 minutes? Like, what's going on here? And I was like, oh, it's only delayed 15 minutes. It'll be here. Right soon after that, we're just gonna do a little quick exchange, and then you guys will be on your way. And then they would just be like, oh, all right, and then they walk away. But it's just like, again, that whole thing of just like, man, you should do your best to assume as much responsibility as possible, right? Like I'm kind of making a joke with the airport thing, but again, where it's like, people would get like so frozen by decisions that they would just like spend more time thinking about it instead of just making a decision. And I would just always be the first one and be like, dude, let's just go. Who cares? Like, yeah, what are they going to say? Don't do that next time? All right. Like, and I will say I wasn't always like this. I used to be just as terrified as everyone else of what people thought or if I would get in trouble. But I just remember my buddy he kind of told me, he's like, dude, it's not that big of a deal. Just pick something. And ever since then, it always made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I was saying that the leaders, in a sense, become as much a victim as the followers because they're in their own trap. I feel like we saw that in a movie recently, too. Oh, it was that interrogation movie. What was it called? Interrogation.
Unthinkable?
Yeah, Unthinkable. Where H was like, I'm imprisoned here, too. He's like, I don't want to be here. But he was the one in charge of like the whole operation of basically like getting information from the perpetrator. And so he was like, I don't want to be here as much as you don't want to be here. And just saying like he's a victim too. And then you can see that shadowed into like the leadership roles as well. It's like someone gets into this leadership position and maybe they don't even want to be there. And after a time and they're just stuck there. And it's like, where do you go from there? It's like,
man, that's such a great point. Because that's where a lot of the toxic leadership comes from. It's like this, man, great point, Tori. So one of the main points of this too is, I think you brought up earlier that you can only lead from, you can't be any better than your internal frequency. Like you're just going to lead from the place that you're at. And, you might think, well, what does that mean? Well, if you're in a survival based mode, like you're just trying to survive the job that you're at, that's going to infect everything that you do, right? You're literally just trying to survive. So everyone else is going to adapt that same mindset. Like you're not in a position where you can like tell people to do things ahead of time so that we're set up for success, or, like think ahead on like other people's problems. Be like, hey, make sure you show them this because once this thing comes around, it's all going to be crazy, right? You're not even looking out for other people. You're like, man, I got to make sure I do these things. And then, man, I'm going to have to make sure.
I got to go to the bathroom. I didn't eat today.
Yeah. Got to make sure my vape is charged so I can take 5 minutes to sit down. Oh, real quick, because I forgot earlier. Oh, the whole thing about leading by example. One of the number one things that would drive me crazy, someone be like, one of the managers at the restaurant, they're like, everyone stand up. Everyone needs to stand up. Come on, wake up, wake up. We're about to get this shift started. And it's like, it would annoy me because I know that in 2 hours, I'm going to see this mofo sitting in a chair inside the manager's office, just chilling, hanging out on his phone, smoking a vape. And he's going to tell me that what little time I have to sit down and enjoy my food before the shift starts, I got to stand up and get ready to go. But in 2 hours, he's going to be sitting on his butt. And then they'll be like, oh no, well, we have to do office work. And I'm like, well, you're not doing office work every second that I'm in there. I've walked in on you guys plenty of times. You're just like this. Wait, what? And it's like, so you're going to troll me about standing up right now? Like, you don't think I'm tired? I have to stand from the beginning of the shift to the end of the shift, right? So yeah, leading by example. But back to what we are talking about earlier. Yeah, so you can only lead from the internal frequency that you're at. So these people don't like their job. So they're not operating in a way that allows anyone else to like their job. And if no one else on your team likes their job, you have like no real power, right? I think it says it in the book, right? Like unless you have the army on your side, you have no real power. And that's almost like what we exploit every time as like employees, is like, the second you find another better place, you just like let them know. It's like, no, dude, I'll leave. I'll go somewhere else. Like, you don't understand. This is not working for me. And only then do you actually catch their attention. But before that, no matter what, they won't even listen to you, right? And it's because they are, again, operating from they're not really trying to operate in a position where like, no, this person's loyalty actually matters to me. And the reason it doesn't is because they don't have any loyalty to anyone else. They're literally only loyal to the paycheck. And I'm sorry, this goes so deep, but there's like so many different things. Another thing that you'll see, right? Again, when you're operating from a place of survival and, again, you're operating from lower frequencies because you only really care about yourself. You don't care about the team as a whole, is you get trapped by the money. So the number one thing that you see in the Marine Corps is these people would get used to getting a paycheck. So like you're in for 4 years. Well, for 4 years straight, you've been used to getting, $1,500 every 2 weeks. That is a lot. Like as someone who works in the civilian world now, it's like, man, to know that no matter what, there's a paycheck getting direct deposited every 2 weeks that has everything that, $1,500, $1,600 every couple of years. Every year you get a bonus. Every year you're guaranteed to get a pay raise because it scales up with how many years you've been in. Not to mention, if you gain rank, you also get another pay raise. And every 2 years, it's like every 1 year you get a raise, but then every 2 years it's a little more, and then every like 5 or 10 years it's like even more. So it's like you're heavily incentivized to stay in. And then again, what happens is people get married or they have kids. And then so now it's like not only are they relying on that check, but so is their significant other and whoever. You get a place to live. It's not paid for, but it's like subsidized. So it's generally cheaper to stay wherever you're at. Also in the Marine Corps, you can essentially spend every single dollar, be completely irresponsible with your money, and you'll still be fine. You'll be able to go to the chow hall and get food. You'll be able to, you're surrounded by people that generally have money. So like, even if you're like an idiot, someone's going to be able to spot you, get you to work or whatever. Like you can just catch a ride to work if you don't have gas. Like you can figure it out. It's like a common case that Marines blow all their money and then just like survive until the next paycheck. So, but what you would see is people get used to the paycheck and then they're not staying in because they don't even want to be in, but they need to be in. And when that happens, they become complainers because they're not happy with where they're at. And the only reason they stayed in is for the money. So they're not doing like the extra things that you need to do so that you are happy. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then, so yeah, I would always see this thing where it's like you see someone and every time you're around, they're like griping, and it's so easy to do, right? It's like, you could either really appreciate what the Marine Corps has done for you, but you could also like really shit on them. And you can do that in any situation, but it's easy to be like, oh, why the fuck we got to do this, man? This is some bullshit. This is just busy work. They just want to keep us down here, blah, 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 and that's toxic. Just listening to that person, you're just like, dude, it's like, not only do I got to do this, but I got to listen to you complain about how we got to do this, and then what happens, that person ends up there for you, instead of getting out. Like they always told you, man, the number one thing, the first 4 years, what everyone complains about is like, yeah, all my friends are going to college and partying and stuff. And here I am stuck doing this, not doing anything. And it's like, man, I could have already been 3 years into college, be almost done, or blah, 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 right? Like everything would have been so much better if they were just out, right? And then they stay in. And do you think that behavior changes? No, they become the exact same person, but now they're in charge of someone else. And what are they doing? They're doing the exact same thing. Like, oh, yeah, freaking so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. I just got to do this. And then it just like infects, everyone below them. And so again, like the power of leadership, the real leadership comes from like, one, when you're in service to others. And then two, when you're not operating from like that survival state, but that thrive state. Like I always tell myself, I don't want to survive, I want to thrive. And, anytime you get to somewhere new where you're like, the stress level is super high, you're going to be in survival mode. But it just takes work. It just like, okay, I'll get used to it. I'll start to figure out ways that set me apart, et cetera, et cetera. Like I remember when I went to Special Forces selection. At first I was just in pure survival mode. I was just trying to make it through the day. But by the end of it, I was one of the best guys. And I had to focus on my hiking. I had to, when everyone else was done, I'd go to the pool and work on my swimming because my swimming sucked. But yeah, just taking that extra step of like, man, how can I make myself just slightly more prepared for tomorrow than I was yesterday? And when you take that mindset, soon you'll be thriving. Things will just get a little easier. So you have the mind space to prepare for another thing or the next thing. But yeah, so again, that whole leading from where you're at, is super important. And, we've talked about enthusiasm before, but just being enthusiastic about what it is that you're doing completely changes everything, again, just that the attitude shift could change the way that you lead, the environment, the aura,
your perception.
Right.
Yeah, one thing that I feel like is something that we should look at, like you were saying, with people leading from the vibration that they carry. It's the same thing with our presidents. It's like we should look at their lives in terms of their family, and are they in a happy relationship? Are their kids thriving? Are their kids happy? Like, what does their home life look like? And from that, it can tell you so much. It's like, why are we even considering electing someone who doesn't have relationships under control and thriving, happy, fundamental foundation for a happy life? Like,
it used to be like that.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Have you seen the movie with, what is it? It's with, Zach Galifianakis and not Seth Rogen, but who's the other? No, I forget his name. But Candidate. Remember the movie Candidate? Right? It's like the same thing. As soon as they decide he's running for candidate, they like change his whole family and make him look like a certain way. They like replace his painting with a huge bald eagle, and they're like, get those two ugly things out of there. They get rid of the two pugs that they had and replace them with German shepherds. And then like everyone got like different haircuts. They all look different, and like to look like the traditional American family. But what's so funny is I don't even think that exists anymore.
No.
Right? Like I would think, I'm pretty sure just in Obama's time, right? Like it's still like the same thing going on where everyone's trying to make sure that they're the most, button up. Yeah, right? Like, like the whole thing was like, he's got a wife, 2 kids, they got 2 dogs, a perfect house. Like that's like the standard. But now it's like you look at the 2 guys, it's like the complete opposite of what you would expect of like the American traditional family. I mean, I guess you could say Trump a little bit, right? At least like when he shows up, it seems like a happy family. But like with the whole thing with Biden, right? He's got Hunter Biden's like doing cocaine in the White House and, accepting all these jobs, getting paid with taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. I mean, there was like all these arguments against Trump too, with him back in the business days, how he was basically like a criminal. It's like, did he kill some people whenever he was working in the business world? Who knows? It's like anything could have happened back then. We literally don't know. And it's like so successful and so like ingrained in whatever reality he was in. And so, yeah, definitely. And they're so old. This was another argument that I heard, that like their generations of children, they're not thriving necessarily. And so they're getting so old that how can they possibly relate to the upcoming generations? It's like they're about to die anyway. So why would they even really care that much? Or how much ties do they really have to this reality and the people that are coming? So.
Yeah, Elon Musk said it. He's like, the old people just need to die. Like he came out and said it straight up. He was like, that old people generally just hold back society. Yeah. And it takes the newer, younger minds to really push it forward. And that most of the old people just spend too much time like holding things back. And it's like, man, it's like, it sucks to think about, because that we're transitioning into the older, generations, and you don't want to believe that the old people have like outdated ways of thinking, but we've all seen it. I've seen a group of people just sit here and be like, it was like, I ordered a meal and it was like my older coach, and a bunch of his older buddies, and they're all drinking beer, like talking, and I'm just like enjoying my sandwich. And, they're like talking about, times these days. And it's like, Everyone's on their damn phones these days, whatever, going on and on. And someone's like, remember Toys R Us? And it's like, yeah, Toys R Us. It's like, it's a damn shame. They're out of business now, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I remember the good old days when my mom take me to Toys R Us and get a toy. And it's like, now, what about all those workers, all those good people Toys R Us used to have? No, don't exist no more. Damn new generations. And I was thinking it's like so funny because I bet that the generation before them, like, God damn Toys R Us. It's like, your fancy toys, stupid kids. But then I literally, it's like, for whatever reason, I was like, well, Toys R Us went out of business. But, you could only argue that it was like maybe like a multi-million dollar company. But Apple's a multi-billion dollar company and they have hundreds and hundreds of employees. And yeah, it's like, these devices are now a much bigger industry. Like there's way more people that work for Apple and Microsoft and these things that create tablets, and like the industry is so much bigger. So it's like the thing that you're complaining about is doing what Toys R Us did for you guys. It's just different. It's like, what about all those good Toys R Us employees? It's like, I was like, well, Apple employees like literally probably like 4 times as many people as what Toys R Us did. It's like, it's a worldwide billion-dollar company. And I just remember they're all just like, it's like that classic scene of that classic meme where someone's like this and then just says something obvious and then they throw them out the window. It's like everyone just got signed. They're all just staring at me like kind of half drunk. They're like, well, who the fuck are you? I was like, I'll go back to eating my burger now. It's like they weren't ready for that truth.
No, I think that mostly came up because of the polarizing news. I feel like that was in a headline and some people just adopted it and they were just mad about it.
Yeah.
I feel like it wasn't ever really a thought until like the news was like, oh, let's make people angry. And they're like, yeah, Toys R Us, they're the criminals because they went out of business or something. Like they made them look really bad, like basically. And I do remember that because I grew up with Toys R Us in my town, so it was pretty funny.
Yeah. But yeah, again, then the whole idea that most likely old people hold us back. No hate on the old people, but it does seem to be the case, right? There's always like, some older guy cranky, holding on to things. And man, so in the Marine Corps, the way the promotions are based on how many that they need. How many they need is based on how many people are still in. And the joke would always be that there's like some, 60-year-old master gunnery sergeant, which is the highest enlisted rank. So the way it goes is like the highest rank is a master gunnery sergeant. And there's only a handful of those guys, right? So like, let's say, for example, just to keep the numbers easy, you got one master gunnery sergeant for your entire MOS. Under him, that means you might have, so I think master gunnery sergeant is master sergeants. So you'll have more of them. So let's say if you had one master gunnery sergeant, you might have 6 master sergeants. And then below that, you might have 12 or 18 gunnery sergeants. Then below that, that'll allow for, maybe 30 staff sergeants. And then below that, right? So it just gets bigger and bigger. But as you move through the ranks, right, whether you get the next whether you become available for the next promotion or not is based on how many of those guys are still in. Right. So the way the promotion is like, oh, this gunny, he's been in for however long. He decided to retire. That opened up, So and like another thing too is like if one position gets taken, it kind of opens up even more positions even lower because like let's say, well, one person shifts, but that usually generally means that the other guys, because they didn't get the promotion, they're going to get out. Like, does that make sense? Like you see like, oh, well, the promotion was taken. So, you're going to have to essentially finish out the next 3 years without the promotion because it'll be however many years till it opens up again. So you just be like, I'm good. I'm just going to get out. Like you tried it, you didn't get it. So you'll just finish your time out as a gunny. So generally, just one position at the top trickles down to a bunch of different positions below you. But what happens is you get this master gunnery sergeant who's been in for fucking eternity, and he's just like,
never wants to leave.
Why would I leave? Because they don't do anything. And it's always like, so we didn't really say that they wouldn't do anything because you just don't know, right? Like at the lower ranks, you don't know, like, what the fuck is a master gunnery sergeant doing all goddamn day, right? But it'd always be like, someone go take this motherfucker out so we can all get promoted. Like, we'd always joke around, be like, wherever this fool's at, someone needs to go take a bat to him so he can retire and the rest of us can get promoted. And well, one day I'm like moving into a new unit or something, and so like anytime you switch units, you got to go get a bunch of signatures from all these people so that they know that you exist, whatever. So I'm going to go get this thing, and there's only like one guy in this office, and I'm like talking to him, and he is a gunnery sergeant, and he might have been a master sergeant. I felt like, no, he had to have been a lower rank. I think he was a gunnery sergeant. And I'm telling you, he was loony. Like, he was half senile. And he just like, and I even like watched other people interact with him because I like came on like waiting for something. And I remember he had to like calculate something, and like getting him to use a calculator on the phone was like this big thing. He was like, wait, what are we doing there? He was literally like, like talking all weird, and like I could barely understand what he was saying. And I saw this other person come in, and they're like, oh, hey, gunnery sergeant. He's like, oh, thank you, gunnery sergeant. Like all this mad respect. He's just like, oh, thank you. And then leaves. And I'm like trying to talk to the dude, and he's like not even capable of doing his job. I'm like, what the? He's like supposed to like take my weight or something, and he just couldn't do it. He was just like, yeah, wait, what was it? 215. And I'm like helping him write it down. He's like, yeah, okay, dude. And he hands it to me. He just goes back to sitting there. And it's like this short period of time I knew this guy. I was like, this guy doesn't do anything. He literally does nothing. And everyone's like, oh, treats him with mad respect. And then it's like, it just occurs to you, like, why would he leave? Why would he leave? He has all the respect in the world. He literally has to do nothing except show up and wear a uniform and just have everyone suck him off. Like, because when you're at that rank, you know, it's like, one, people respect the rank, and they should. But then it kind of gets to this thing where it's like, it like transcends above anything that you're actually doing. Like, oh, he's a gunnery sergeant, you must respect a gunnery sergeant, you know? And it's like, even though this person isn't doing anything. So then people get addicted to that feeling, you know, of like, oh, I'm in power and everyone respects exactly who I am and all this stuff. And then again, if you're a gunnery sergeant and you've been in for freaking 18, 20 years, you know what that paycheck is like? That is a fat paycheck. Not just the you know, the 7th rank of money, but you're also getting 20 years of $50 add-ons on top of that. That shit adds up. So then you get this old guy who's literally barely capable of even communicating to people. It's so funny too, because like in the military world, similar to the martial arts world, everyone's like way older than they actually are. Like, this dude couldn't have been that old. As a gunnery sergeant that's been in 20 years, he's probably like late 40s or something, early 40s. Like, he wasn't that old. But I'm telling you, communicating with this guy is like I was talking to a caveman from the past. He was just literally like mumbling to himself and kind of like, he was like forgetting what he was doing while we were doing it. And he's like, wait, what are we doing? I'm like, you're just going to write down my weight on that paper. And he's like, oh, yeah. It's like, you know, he's like, he writes it down. He like forgets what he was doing. He like startles himself, because I'm like standing over him, like waiting for this. I'm literally like half the puppet. I'm like, write down the number, sign your name. Oh man. But so that's how that happens, because now there is no incentive for this guy to leave. He is just going to keep like stumbling along, earning a paycheck, not doing anything, and that hurts the rest of the team, because there are hard workers who aren't getting promoted because that spot is not available. And, you know, once you get there, they can just stay there. So like some people, they're smart. They're like, oh, there's no further way for me to move up. It's time for me to find something else. And so they'll just get out. But then other guys, they just don't care. They're just like, where's you here? You know, no problemo, you know? But yeah, so you see that whole thing of just like where old people holding on to power. They just don't want to let it go. And I kind of feel that with like Trump. It's like, this dude just doesn't want to let it go. But
they're probably exactly just like that.
Yeah.
It's like so old. It's like, what is this guy even doing?
Yeah, I can't imagine, like, what does he do all day besides the other things?
He just shows up for publicity. I think that's
right. It's just like, and watching his favorite shows, like some old show that doesn't even exist anymore, like MASH or something like Nash.
Yeah,
Some old ass. He's like, the Brady Bunch is on. So as soon as he gets in his limo, they just turn on the Brady Bunch and give him a soda or something. He's like, yeah. Shuffle him around places. I mean, I bet you he don't even sign shit. I bet you
Probably
they
not. There's
just
probably
got
a
a stamp.
stamp.
Yeah, they stamp his fucking shit on there. Oh, snap. What were you saying about Toy Story?
Oh yeah, Toy Story. We saw that where the future version of Buzz becomes like this distorted version of himself, and the younger version meets the older version, and he doesn't even recognize that it's himself in the beginning. But then the older version's trying to convince the younger version, like, no, this is the way. We must like reconcile our past. And he's like still holding on to the past. And like, that's like affecting all of his decision makings. And he's becoming like this evil villain in a sense, because he like won't move on and accept the flow of life.
Yep. Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure like the younger version had to kill the older version. Pretty sure he killed them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He had to like kill him to move on. But yeah,
or send him back to his own time zone or something, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, some sort of explosion.
Yeah, something happened. But yeah, I feel like in my upbringing, like I never ever paid attention to politics. But I feel like that's exactly what they want us to do, isn't like not to pay attention to politics.
No, 100%.
They're just like sweeping things under the rug, just doing everything undercover and only showing us like what they want us to see, like a perceived reality that's untrue. And I feel like that's coming more and more to the light, but I've just been experiencing that in my own way. Like maybe I should be paying attention. It's like, who are these people?
Yeah. Well,
what are they doing?
No, it's like, I've been through the same thing where it's like, I would say things like, the only people who understand politics are politicians. So why am I going to bother trying to understand it? Right? It's like someone who doesn't do grappling trying to tell me what grappling is. It's like, you just don't know unless you do it. So then my whole mindset is like, well, unless I'm doing politics, there's just no point in paying attention to it. But no, we have to pay attention to it because these people are robbing us. And it's like, you have to know about the corruption. Not necessarily that, this other idea is like, well, what are you going to do about it? It's like, so because I don't have the answer for that, or maybe there's no obvious answer in the moment, doesn't mean that that's a reason for ignorance. Because by understanding that these people are taking advantage of us, or just understanding how politics works, it allows you a deeper insight on just the way that the world works. And you have to know how the world works to navigate through this life. You can't just be head in the sand. That's what that is head in the sand.
The followers.
You're just not going to pay attention. And that's how they continue to, it's like, you can't just, everyone wants to be like, oh, well, life's way better than it is now. And it's like, everyone in every civilization has said that, and they all fell. So it's like, we still have to be mindful that can happen to us. We can become a victim of history, right? Where, right, no one learns from history, right? That's like a classic example. It's like, oh, if you want to know what's going to happen, just look at history. And there's plenty of examples of what's going to happen, and people just choose to ignore it. And if you read what happens to Rome, you'll really see that it's happening to us. But whether you can do something about it in the moment or not does not give you an excuse for the ignorance.
Yeah, we must become aware and then be open to at least conversation and ideas and see if and what we can do about it. And only through those conversations can we even come to any realization. But yeah, going towards the civic level, I want to hit on that before we conclude. This just really related to the avatar for me, because it was basically saying that the collective level of consciousness must reach a certain level before the civic level can even arise through that consciousness. So we must reach a certain level, a certain state, before we can ever truly see any virtuous leader, or even elect or even recognize that person to be our leader. So just doing inner work and understanding and asking questions, and not being a follower, and like you said, not being ignorant, and trying to understand what's going on and raising our own frequencies and vibrations, can we even begin to visualize what that's like? Because in our perception currently, it's unthinkable. And like the avatar, he was asleep for 100 years. And so just in that same way, there could be this consciousness waiting to arise, but it has to wait for the right time.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Totally agree. Go ahead.
Yeah, because they went through 100 years of suffering, and basically whenever he arrived, they were blaming it all on him, but it's like that had to happen. And these things had to happen, and he is there now to reconcile what has happened and create a better future from there. And so maybe we're just waiting on divine timing. But also, we can't let the time slip away. We have to do our own individual work through the collective.
Yeah, and I totally get that, because I feel like good leaders can be put down by stupid people. I wouldn't say stupid people, low frequency people. I don't know. But you can try to lead someone with good intentions, but if they're not ready to be led in that way, they see it as an offense. Like some people, they just want to be told what to do. Like they're just some people, they don't have the ability to think for themselves. And so they take it offense when someone is like trying to get them to that state or lead them in that way. Like if someone just wants to be told what to do, you can't guide them because they just need to be given a basic task. So that totally makes a lot of sense that you can't just, that the next leader, you can't just be there because the people aren't ready to be led in that way. So even if that person existed, right, it's like the idea of like when someone makes like a huge scientific discovery, like back in the day, there's a good chance they might kill that person because they just weren't even ready to hear that information. I want to say it was like Galileo or, there's several of them that pretty much try to say that the earth wasn't the center of the universe. And, that was like religious blasphemy back then. And so there was a good chance that it might put you in jail or kill you. And they did to some of those people. The same thing can very well happen here where, you could be this next level leader and then, people see you as a threat. And there's people arguing that's Trump, right? That he's leading in a certain way that goes against the current system and they're trying to put him away forever. So, now imagine if that person was like truly like a next level thinker and saying like crazy things. There's like no, telling what they might do to that person. You can say Elon Musk is one of the most popular people on the planet, but also the most hated person on the planet, so, and he's not even in the political realm. Imagine if he was a political leader, what people would say about him, right? There's one last thing I wanted to cover because we're kind of running out of time here, but I want to say that, we were talking about the frequency and leaders. Let me think about it for a second.
I had a point. So, with people going unrecognized, you see this through artists, scientists, every realm. Basically, like after the person passes away, only then can they receive recognition because we just weren't ready to accept what they had to offer. And they were saying that these truly virtuous leaders do live among us currently, but their genetic code is hidden, and it's like the introverted way of going towards virtue is basically like hiding the nature, and so that it's like they're unaware that it even exists within them, and they're unaware that this higher level of reality can exist. And that just reminds me of like that story with the rats. It's basically like what you were saying, like you create these generations of rats that don't know how to get out of the box and they just stop trying to get out of the box. And like in the beginning, they were all escaping the box, and through generations, they just don't even understand that there is a way out. And so it's like the same thing within our genetic coding, that we're unaware that these things even exist. So how could we possibly come to the understanding that we could be the virtuous leader that the world needs?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, the last thing that I wanted to bring up was that clip from The Matrix. Man, it literally just popped up in my feed, which again, kind of like reinstills why us doing this podcast is so important. I feel like because we go through these things and listen to these things, all of a sudden it like brings it out in our reality, which is super trippy. It's like, I don't know. To me, it seems like because we're doing this, that like more positive things are coming into our reality. So that seems cool. But yeah, so this clip popped up and I want to say it was from the fourth Matrix. I could be wrong. It's either the fourth one or maybe the second one. But it was one of the later sequels where he meets the Oracle and she offers him a piece of candy. And he goes, it's like a remembrance to the first scene where she asks him for a cookie and then lets him know that she already knew if he was going to take it or not, and then starts to mess with his mind. And so then the same thing happens with the candy, and he's like, well, you already know if I'm going to accept the candy or not. And she's like, of course. She's like, correct. And he's like, so then why even ask me? Or like, what's the point? And she goes, you're not here to necessarily like figure out what decisions to make. It's like, it's not the decision itself. It's why you chose to make this decision. And essentially saying that you're trying to remember why you chose this specific destiny. Like the why is more powerful than what. Like what choice. It's not the what choice you picked, but it's why you picked this choice. And that's what he's going through now, is the journey of remembering why he is who he is. And there was a comment in the reel that really broke it down, of just this whole thing of like, it kind of breaks down like our destiny or our fate. Like we pick it, and then in between that, our free will is how we make those decisions, right? And the attitude that we make them with. And this book at the end talks about that someone who can really tap into, the city of virtue and really tap into the seventh gene key can see the future. And through this, they understand the why, and then they become like truly driven with divine purpose. And then it infects other people because they completely understand. And that's what she was trying to relate to Neo, was that when you understand your why, like the specific decisions themselves no longer matter, because you remember that there's a purpose for the decisions that you picked for yourself, or the canon events or whatever. And man, that rings so true to me, because it's like when you meet someone that has a purpose, like something greater than just trying to figure out each day, it like their calmness really does vibrate, and it kind of like reaffirms you that everything's going to be okay. It's like I've met those types of leaders before, and it's like it just makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense of virtue and how that can affect your leadership. I remember someone gave me a really good quote of leadership, and I wanted to kind of say it before we ended, but leadership is the ability to influence an individual to do something or try something that they previously thought that they couldn't do. It's like, so the ability to inspire someone to do something that they didn't want to do or previously thought that they couldn't do. So that idea of leadership isn't telling someone what to do or bossing them around. It's, again, inspiring, which goes back to like the attitude and the aura and enthusiasm, like all that. That's how you inspire someone. You can't inspire someone because I'm in charge and this is what we got to do. That's not how you inspire, right? So again, leading by example. So all those things apply to inspiring someone. And then it's like inspiring them to do what? It's like something that they kind of needed you for, like not needed you, but if they could do it on their own, then you're not really leading them, right? So it's like you're inspiring them to be able to like take on like new capacities. And so that always made the most sense to me. It's like you want to inspire these people to be better, right? Not necessarily just be who they are, right? Which is underneath you. It's like, no, I want you, right? In jiu-jitsu, you try to train someone to be better than you. It's like, I want you guys to be way better than I ever could. And my guys already are. They're better than me when I started. So it's only a matter of time before they're better than me where I'm at. And so then that's the goal. It's like, I want you guys to know everything that I know and more.
Yeah, transcend the impossible of your own mind. And you can only see what is possible through someone that has had the experience. Mm-hmm. And you save them so much time and experience and suffering because you've already experienced it. And you automatically give them a starting point that you were not.
Right. Like a new jump point. Hell yeah.
It's like when you're in a video game and you die and then you have like a checkpoint where you died. It's like starting from there rather than starting from the whole beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else?
No.
All right. This is one of my favorite gene keys. I wish it was in my genetic code. But I will appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you guys liked the episode.